Starting off the video, I want to give a huge congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are of course the 2020 Stanley Cup champions. What an incredible run they went on without their captain Steven Stamkos after being swept in the first round last season. Very, very deserving. I don't think we should look at Tampa Bay's Stanley Cup win any differently than we would look at any of the other previous Stanley Cup winners. You could honestly make the argument that what Tampa Bay had to go through being away from their families as long as they were is more difficult than what you usually have to go through to win a Stanley Cup. So huge congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning, but also a huge congratulations to the NHL in general. The playoffs, in my opinion, were fantastic. The bubbles worked out perfectly, and there wasn't a positive test throughout the entire thing, which is amazing. I wanted to make sure I started off by getting all that out of the way, and now let's get into the video. By now, I'm sure you're all up to date with the current rumors regarding Patrik Laine of the Winnipeg Jets. It all kind of started a couple of days ago when Darren Dreger was on TSN and was asked if the Winnipeg Jets are serious about moving Patrik Laine. Darren Dreger responded to that question by saying absolutely they're serious. I mean, Patrik Laine's name on the trade bait board isn't just eye candy or speculative. And then not too long ago, Elliotte Friedman said there's a legit chance a Patrik Laine trade happens. Columbus is in there, but is there a match? Same with Carolina. Two teams that could do it, Los Angeles and Philadelphia. I'm just not sure they would. I also wonder about the Islanders. So with all of this news coming out and it now officially being the off season, I figured it would be a perfect time to do another NHL deal or no deal, but this time a Patrik Laine edition. The other day I posted on the community tab asking you guys to comment your Patrik Laine mock trades, and as of right now I'm looking at the number, there are 535 comments on that post. Now obviously I can't pick every single one or the video would just never end, so I do want to apologize in advance to anybody who doesn't have their comment featured today, but don't worry, now that it's the off season I'm going to be doing a lot more videos just like this one in the coming weeks. Real quickly before we begin, be sure to go follow me on Instagram and Twitter to stay connected. You can also go check out my gaming channel if that is something that interests you. Links to all that will be down below in the description, and as always, if you guys are new to this channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and now let's begin. The first comment of the video comes from Hubert37, who says the Blues get Laine Vesalainen and Luke Green, and the Jets get the rights to Pietrangelo and Brayden Schenn. Now I wanted to start off with this one because it is something I have seen proposed a good bit, and looking at the names in the trade, you might think this is a pretty good return for the Winnipeg Jets. You know, getting a superstar defenseman in Alex Pietrangelo and somebody in Brayden Schenn who can come in and be a great second line center, which is definitely something that the Jets need. However, I feel like not enough people realize this, but trading the rights to a UFA doesn't have much value at all. Yes, it does give you the right to negotiate a contract with that player before they are hitting the open market, but that player has no obligation to sign with you just because you traded for their rights. They can still go and test the open market and take a deal somewhere else. So this trade would pretty much be the Winnipeg Jets trading away Patrik Laine and Christian Vesalainen, who is a great prospect by the way, for Brayden Schenn and a chance to sign Alex Pietrangelo. And with the way things are going, it looks like Pietrangelo is going to hit unrestricted free agency on October 9th, so without making this trade, the Jets are going to have a chance to sign him anyways. Now if this trade came with a contract extension, then it would be a conversation, but if it's just for his rights, definitely no deal. Moving along now, the next comment comes from Massaboy, who says Patrik Laine for Ryan Ellis, Kyle Turris, and Philip Tomasino. Now I really do like the idea of Ryan Ellis going to Winnipeg. I think he would be a great fit there, and Philip Tomasino is a really good prospect. However, I really don't think the Winnipeg Jets would see any appeal whatsoever in taking on the contract of Kyle Turris. I feel like in doing that, they would almost be doing the Nashville Predators a favor. So for that reason alone, I'm gonna say no deal here. Again, I like Ryan Ellis, I like Philip Tomasino, but Kyle Turris kind of really weighs this trade down. This next comment comes from Samuel, who says to Carolina, Patrik Laine in a 2021 4th round pick, to Winnipeg, Brett Pesce, Vincent Trocheck, Jake Bean, and a 2021 2nd round pick. Now this one here is a good one. Brett Pesce, I'm a big fan of. I think he would fill Winnipeg's need of a top 4 defenseman nicely, and Vincent Trocheck is kind of the X factor in this trade because the past couple of years for him haven't been the greatest, but this is a guy who back in the 2017-18 season scored 31 goals and put up 75 points, and on top of that offensive production was a solid two-way centerman. If the Winnipeg Jets knew for a fact they would be getting that version of Vincent Trocheck in this trade, I think they'd pull the trigger because he He would be an amazing second line center for them. So that fills two of Winnipeg's biggest needs, a top 4 defenseman and a second line centerman. And then they'd also be getting Jake Bean, who might not be a top 4 defenseman right now, but definitely has the potential to be. If Carolina was to go and pursue Patrik Laine, I definitely think Jake Bean would be a piece going back to Winnipeg because he has value, and when it comes to a team like Carolina who has so many good defensemen, it's going to be hard for Jake Bean to break into that lineup. I like this trade. Again, like I said, if you're Winnipeg, you are kind of betting on Vincent Trocheck bouncing back, but I think I'm going to say deal on this one. Next up, we have a comment from Card Collector 52 who says, to New Jersey, Laine in a 4th, to Winnipeg, Damon Severson, Pavel Zacha, and their 18th overall draft pick. The structure of this trade isn't bad, a defenseman, a forward, and a draft pick, and I do like Damon Severson, but Winnipeg is in need of a top 6 forward, preferably a second line centerman, and as of right now, Pavel Zacha is not that. He's not the player the Jets need, and sure, he is still relatively young, and one day, yes, he could develop into a solid top 6 forward, but there's also a good chance he doesn't. I don't think the Jets will be willing to take that risk, so for that reason, I'm gonna have to say no deal to this one. Continuing on now, this comment comes from, we'll say Vinny with an X, who says, to Columbus, Patrik Laine and a second round pick, to Winnipeg, Zach Werenski. Says that the Jets need to fill on D and Jackets boost their offense, which is much needed. Second rounder to even out the value. Man, could you imagine if this happened? What a blockbuster trade this would be, but honestly, I'm not sure if Columbus does this. Like, I'm thinking of it in the aspect of, if you put Patrik Laine on the Columbus Blue Jackets and you take off Zach Werenski, does that make Columbus a better team? Yeah, of course it does boost their offense, but it does leave a pretty big hole in their defense. Zach Werenski is an amazing player. He's one of the best young defensemen in the entire NHL. I honestly don't think Columbus would ever trade him, so for that reason, I think I'm going to say no deal here. The next comment we have comes from Dax14, who says, to Winnipeg, Domi Mete and a 2020 first round pick, to Montreal, Patrik Laine. Now, Montreal is a team that's name has been brought up a good bit when it comes to Patrik Laine. It seems like whenever there's a big name player available, Montreal is always in the conversation, whether it's an RFA, a UFA, or even someone available via trade. I think it's safe to say Montreal is in search of a superstar forward. They haven't had one in a very long time. You look at what they did last offseason when they threw an offer sheet at Sebastian Aho. This summer when John Tavares was a UFA, they made a big pitch of trying to bring him in. Like, they want a superstar guy, and Patrik Laine definitely could wind up being that if they trade for him. And for Winnipeg, this is a trade that fills both of your needs. You get somebody in Max Domi who can come in and be a second line center for you. He played center the majority of last season when he put up 72 points, and Victor Mete is still relatively young and is capable of playing a top 4 role. On top of those two guys, you get a first round pick. I think the value is pretty good here. I'm gonna go ahead and say deal on this one. If Patrik Laine is traded, let's say to Montreal, I definitely think the trade could look something like this. Moving along now, this next comment comes from the Buffalo Bobcast, who says, Buffalo, Laine and a 4th in 2023, and the Jets get Brandon Montour, Casey Middlestat, and 2 second round picks. I'm gonna go ahead right away and say no deal on this one. I remember I was such a big fan of Casey Middlestat heading into the 2018-19 season. He was a guy who was supposed to come in and compete for the Calder Trophy against Elias Pettersson. Safe to say things really haven't worked out for Casey Middlestat, at least so far at the NHL level. He is obviously still really young and could turn out to be a stud, but again, there is that chance that he doesn't, and that is way too big of a risk for Winnipeg to take. If he doesn't turn out to be a stud, then this trade kind of sucks for them and they be getting fleeced. The next comment comes from Zane Levy, who says, Laine to the Rangers for Strome, D'Angelo, and whatever number pick they have in the first. This gives Winnipeg a second line center and a very good defenseman. While yes, that is true, but both Strome and D'Angelo are restricted free agents, and I'm not sure if that is something that Winnipeg would want to deal with this offseason. And from the Rangers side of things, yes, Laine is an incredible player, but if they trade away Strome, then they kind of put themselves in the same spot that the Winnipeg Jets are currently in. The Rangers wouldn't really have a second line center behind Mika Zibanejad. So while I do like the idea of this trade and I don't really think the value is too far off, I'm gonna say no deal, partly because I don't really think it makes sense for the Rangers, and again, like I said, I don't know if Winnipeg would be interested in trading Laine for two guys that are both RFAs. Moving along now, this comment comes from Philip Lindblad. I hope I'm saying your name properly, I apologize if I butchered it, but they say Winnipeg trades Laine to the Arizona Coyotes for Nick Almerson and Nick Schmaltz and a 3rd round pick. I'm definitely a big fan of Nick Almerson. I think he's the prototypical shutdown defenseman that would be a really good fit in Winnipeg, but he's 33 years old now and is a unrestricted free agent at the end of this upcoming season. So let's say he leaves in free agency at the end of this upcoming season, then you would have basically traded away Patrik Laine for Nick Schmaltz and a 3rd round pick. Like, I like Nick Schmaltz and everything, but I really don't think the value's there for this one, so I'm gonna say no deal. Continuing on now, this next comment comes from Quinlan B, who says Laine to Calgary for Elias Lindholm and Rasmus Andersson. Now, this is one that I definitely like. Lindholm is a really underrated player in my opinion. He's on a fantastic contract as well, and while yes, he has played a lot of wing throughout his tenure with the Calgary Flames, if I'm not mistaken, I think he came into the NHL as a centerman, so he can play that position. So if Elias Lindholm is willing to play center full-time in Winnipeg and fill their need of a second-line center, I honestly think they'd pull the trigger on this trade. And I haven't even mentioned Rasmus Andersson, a 23-year-old defenseman who really had a coming-out party in the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. He was one of Calgary's best defensemen, so he would fill another big need for the Jets as well. This is definitely a really good mock trade. I'm gonna say deal to this one. Man, this one is interesting. From Ben Swindon, hopefully I'm saying your name properly, probably butchered it, but they say to Edmonton, Patrik Laine to Winnipeg, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and a 1st round pick. Oilers get their 1st line winger, and Winnipeg gets their 2nd line center. I'm just picturing it now, Patrik Laine playing with Connor McDavid. He's scoring 50 goals year in and year out if healthy. That would be insane. The one, I guess I'll say flaw with that is, let's say Laine does get traded to the Oilers this offseason. He comes up next year and scores 50 goals playing on a line with Connor McDavid. He's an RFA next offseason, and that would then mean the Oilers have to pay him. Probably have to pay him a lot. I'd imagine Laine would be asking for north of $9 million if that happened. Now that is when things can get a little bit dicey because they already have so much money tied up in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Now the Leafs have shown us they can make it work, but the Leafs haven't been successful at all paying those 3 guys that much money. So do the Oilers want to do that? Their problem isn't really offense, it's defense. So do you want to pay that much money for a guy who's definitely not known for his two-way ability? He's known for his goal scoring. I think they'd be better off paying a defenseman that much money. So without even looking at it from the aspect of the Winnipeg Jets, I think I'm going to say no deal on this one just because I really don't think it makes much sense for Edmonton. The next comment we have comes from HughesFan43, who says Minnesota receives Laine, Winnipeg receives Dumba, a 2021 first, a 2022 first, and Joel Eriksson Ek. I think Dumba would be an amazing fit for the Winnipeg Jets. Joel Eriksson Ek not so much. Again, Winnipeg needs a 2nd line center, and while maybe one day Joel Eriksson Ek develops into that, at this point I would say he's better suited in like a 3rd line defensive forward kind of role. Sure, getting those 1st round picks is good value, but Winnipeg is a team that is trying to compete for a Stanley Cup right now, and those 1st round picks don't really help them right now unless they flip them and use them in another trade or something. But from Minnesota's side of things, yeah, getting a young stud in Laine would be cool, but trading away 2 1st round picks given the way that organization is headed, like, that's pretty risky. Those could be some valuable 1st round picks. The value on this trade isn't really far off, but I am going to say no deal. Part of the reason is because, again, I don't think Minnesota would be smart to trade those 1st round picks. Moving along now, this next comment comes from Black Thunder, who says Patrik Laine for Travis Sanheim, Morgan Frost, and a 2nd round pick. Now Philadelphia is one of those teams that kind of had their name thrown around when it comes to Patrik Laine because they do have the assets to make up a pretty good package. I'm not 100% sure this is it though. Yes, Travis Sanheim would be something Winnipeg needs, a top 4 defenseman. Morgan Frost, however, is still a pretty raw player. He's only played, I think, 20 NHL games up to this point in his career. While I do think one day he will be a good top 6 forward, I'm not sure how soon that is going to be. And when it comes to trading Laine, like, it's a difficult thing to even try and come up with a mock trade because I feel like Winnipeg would need younger players in return that have already kind of established themselves as really good NHL players. And while I think Sanheim has done that, Morgan Frost hasn't to this point because he is still really young. So for that reason, I am going to say no deal to this one. And now the final mock trade of the video. This one comes from Edgy McEdgelord, who says the Kings get Laine and the Jets get the 2nd overall pick in Quinton Byfield, a 3rd in 2021, and Matt Roy. If LA picks up the phone and offers this to Winnipeg, I think Winnipeg takes this in a heartbeat. Now I know I just said I think Winnipeg needs solidified players, but Quinton Byfield, I feel like that'd be too tempting to pass up. Talk about upgrading your center position, potentially getting a franchise centerman in Quinton Byfield. That would be insane. However, I honestly don't really think the LA Kings would consider this. Maybe if the Winnipeg Jets threw in their 10th overall pick in this upcoming draft, that would be of more interest, but I think I'm going to have to say no deal on this one. That is going to do it for this Deal or No Deal Patrik Laine edition. There has been some pretty crazy rumors over the past couple of days when it comes to Jack Eichel, so if you guys want to see a video exactly like this, except with Jack Eichel mock trades, then be sure to let me know down in the comment section. With all that being said, if you guys did enjoy today's video, please be sure to leave it a like. That is the best way to show your support. And as always, if you guys are new to the channel and you want to see more NHL content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys all in the next video.